How's it going? Lenny B here. I'm so happy that we are doing this live again, and I'm glad that you're here watching this. You may be watching it as a replay. You may be joining us live here. I have invited my friend Theo Polo again to join me today, and I'll bring him here on the screen with us. Theo, can you see me okay?
I can. Hey, how are you?
I'm doing well, doing well. I'm gonna be making some adjustments just on the sound and things as we kind of progress through today. Um, and just like before, so this is really the second live, and so bear with me. I'm learning all the software, and there's a lot of moving parts in here. So, and actually, I'm asking for help. If you're on this live and watching, and you say, there's a delay on something weird, or I'm not seeing something right, please let me know because I'm kind of learning as I'm going here. So be gentle with me because I'm pretty sensitive. Theo, how are you doing? Tell everybody where you are.
I'm doing well. I'm live from Finland, just outside of Helsinki. It's a beautiful summer day here yet again, but it's going to be the last of them probably because the rains are coming. So
You could feel it.
season.
You could feel it changing. So now, but you were born in the U.S. Tell me about your just as we wait to have some more and more people join us here. I want to I could learn a little bit about you. When did you move, and what brought you there?
We moved during COVID, so it was really the pandemic that stirred a lot of things up, lockdowns and uncertainty about the future, and we had this option, so we thought we'd take advantage of it. It's nothing against the States because we love the States. The States is still our home.
Mm-hmm.
We still maintain ties there. Obviously, it was more convenient at the time to be over here. So it was a natural decision, especially with little kids, just because it's a little bit, fewer people is always quieter, always
Right.
calmer,
Right.
a little easier.
When you say we, you've got a little one, right? Is she 1 years old?
I have two. I have
Two now.
a son who's 4 and a girl who's 2. So
Oh, beautiful, nice, very nice. And then, so it was just during COVID. So you've been there for about 4 years. Has it been 4 years?
yeah, it's almost 4. Yeah, it's coming up on 4 years in 2 months.
Cool. I want to say hi. We're getting people coming into the live here. The general is here. Thank you. Please leave a comment. Let us know that you're here. I could read the comments, put them on the screen if I feel like doing that, or we've got questions as we go through. We'll definitely have. I want to have some input from people watching. Theo, what we're going to do today, I think what we could talk about a little bit is what we've got planned. I want to do what's called. I may change the name, but I'm thinking about calling this voice recording diagnosis. And I thought about putting an entire medical theme on the whole thing, but I don't want to. I don't want to. I think it'd just be corny, and I didn't want to do that. But the whole idea is like I want to listen to some raw audio, and I get submissions because people send me their voice to process constantly. I'm getting submissions all the time. You're welcome to send me your raw recording submission. But what I do when I go through in my head is like, okay, let me hear this audio and let me diagnose what's wrong with it. What's the weakest part? What is really good? Is it going to process well? And I think as anyone, voiceover artists or actors, excuse me, or people gaming or podcasters, anybody that wants to raise, oh boy, excuse me, hold on, stand by.
It happens to us all at the most inconvenient moment, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. The silencer is here. Yes, a client of mine. I'm glad you're here. Thank you for saying hi. Anybody recording their voice, or if you want to try to upgrade the quality of your voice recording, I think you're going to benefit from what we're going to do today because I'm going to share some of the things that I'm hearing, and I'll play for you, and I'll point your ears to certain things. And I thought it would be great to have you along because I want you to interject and I want you to ask questions. If it comes in your head and you're like, yeah, I don't understand that, or why is this way? Please, because I think, you and I kind of have this little camaraderie here where we're often on the same page with stuff. And I know you want to learn more about these type of things. So how does that feel for you?
Absolutely. Yeah, that sounds great. I'll do my best to be constructive.
So, okay, I know you will. The submission, the audio that we're going to listen to is from Craig. Is it Craig Peters? Yes, it is. I think it is. Stand by. I'm going to switch the screen here and make sure we can do this. Yes, we're going to look at Craig, yes. He sent us some audio, and Craig is from. What am I? I'm seeing something very strange here. Stand by. Why is this happening on my screen? Okay. Craig is from Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, and he sent a raw file last night. And he is. I'm going to tell me if you can. You could see this on the screen.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So Craig, Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. He's using a Rode NT1, a 5th generation mic, a Focusrite 3rd gen, and he is. He sent me his booth. He is. He's got this. It's called something from Snap Studio. Can you see that on the screen?
Mm-hmm.
Snap Studio. It's one of those. It's kind of like. It's one of the tents, right? With the moving blankets, a PVC pipe tent. He started out with a smaller version. He had the 3. I guess it's like 3 foot by 3 foot type, and then he upgraded to the bigger one. And I think a lot of people have these if they want something that's kind of portable. And I think, sometimes it does a good job, sometimes it doesn't do a good job, but that's one of the things I want to talk about today. And I actually called him last night. So he sent me the audio kind of late, and he's on the East Coast, and I'm on the West Coast here in the U.S. And so I just messaged him, and I said, hey, I got a couple questions. I wanted to confirm some of the equipment that he was using, but then I also wanted to make sure it was cool for us to talk. Can I talk about you in some detail and your equipment and stuff tomorrow on the on YouTube Live? And he goes, yeah, of course. So he may be listening. If he is, thanks for letting us use you as a patient here. So here's what I want to do. I'm going to disengage. Let me put the. I'm going to put the. Let's see, Logic back on the screen. You see this, correct?
Yes.
You see Logic? Yeah, thank you for doing that. All right, so what I'm going to do is I've disengaged my processing. I don't want you to worry about the processing I've done, because right now what I'm going to play for you is the completely raw file, and we don't have to listen to the whole thing. I just want you to hear a little bit of it. And so this is, when I think about processing, room treatment, recording level, all of this stuff. And actually, let's do this. This is how I received the file. I adjusted the recording level, and that's one of the most important things in the beginning. But let's just listen to exactly how I got the file.
I like creating voice recordings because who doesn't like the idea of their voice probably being heard around the world? So
I'm with you, Craig. So it's true. I'm right there with you. Did you hear that clearly, Theo?
Yes.
Cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's funny. I have a feeling like he's a little. I can hear it in his voice. It's just like I know it's late over when he recorded this, but like he's a little frustrated. So I'm hoping I can help him. But the first thing that struck me was it's actually sounding pretty good. It sounds like I would expect a Rode NT1 to sound like in a PVC pipe moving blanket tent. So I'm not hearing any like obvious problems. And I should have one caveat here and explain, when we play this back, you're hearing my mic, the noise in my room. We're hearing Theo, your mic, the noise in your room. So what's going over YouTube, plus the streaming and how it, compresses the data. So I know this isn't a very scientific type of test, but I still think it's valuable to kind of go through and hear. Anything stand out to you? Let me play a little bit more, and then you tell me what you're hearing, Theo. I'm not quizzing you, by the way. We'll just tell me what you think.
I've always been told since I was a young kid that I should be in radio or something like that with my voice. Never took it too seriously, but anyway, biggest challenge I have with my recordings is consistency, really.
Anything stand out to you, or what does it sound to you like to your ears for the raw file?
I happen to be fairly familiar with the NT1. So because that's the microphone that I recorded so many audiobooks on. And it does sound like an NT1 for sure.
Okay.
In his particular case, though, that's more specific to him, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but he's got that really deep, bassy voice, and so that low end is very pronounced.
Yes.
There, I can hear it very, very clearly. It's still clear, so the quality of the audio is not bad, but I wonder if maybe taking that low end down a little bit and exploring whether there's any kind of room resonance that might be contributing to it. That would be interesting, because the tent is good, but as we talked about from your audio course or from the acoustic treatment course, if there's materials behind the tent that are reflective, then the sound
Yes.
waves can still, the low frequency waves can still penetrate that and resonate. So I wonder if there might be some of that.
Exactly. And let me just I'm going to change the subject here real quick, and I want to get back to that. You're exactly right. And there's one thing I want to do before that to talk about with his recording. Hey George, we've got the complaining gamer is here. Thank you guys for commenting. And the general just told me, he says, when you share your screen, when you share the screen, we can hear your guest's voice twice. And I thought I solved this problem. It's not you. It's something happening over here because I've got a million things going at one time. So here's what I want to do, Theo. I don't think I can solve this problem during this live, but I'm going to play some audio. We'll look at some stuff, and then I'll switch back to this feed so we can continue speaking, because I think when I have you as the I got to fix whatever that is. When you and I are looking at the other screen, there's a delay, so I don't want to do that to everybody. So you're exactly right. I am concerned with some low frequency reflections, but let's do something really quickly before. Let's go back to this and look. The first thing I want to look at is the recording level. And one of the things that's really surprising to me, or let me put this on the bottom and make it bigger, just in general, it's very dynamic. A voice is usually very dynamic. We have loud consonants and transients is what they call these little peaks. And then there's quiet parts, and he has a very dynamic speaking voice. It gets really loud in the beginning, but that's very natural. So in general, a voice is very dynamic, or a voice recording captured on a microphone. So the first thing I want to do is I can see that this is a few dB above peaking, and when I'm saying peaking, it's these transients here above peaking at -6. So what I like to do right off the bat is normalize this clip, and this is a consistent. His speech here is one consistent presentation. So I'm going to just standardize this to the way I like to work and the way I suggest all my students work. And so I've dropped the gain down to -2.8 decibels. And that's the very first thing I want to do before I get to anything else. Recording level and the room treatment are absolutely the first, but if I'm going to optimize this, apply effects and do things, the recording level is the first. And I want to emphasize that and share it, because I think if you are self-producing your stuff as well, I suggest you do that. Standardize every piece of audio. And Theo, as I know, because you have purchased all my training courses and you know them all, if you have loud and quiet portions, like you're kind of shouting in 2 sentences and then your next couple sentences are quiet, as you know, I like to split those up and fine-tune the gain on those so they both peak at -6. You're going to have more consistency. Yeah. And the reason why I say that is because one of the things he's concerned with, he says one of his challenges, let's go look at his voice recording challenges. This is from him. He says, I have problems, look at the third one down. I have problems with consistency, getting my pickups. So he says when he's got to cut in, or if he screws up a word or screws up a sentence and he repeats that sentence, maybe after stopping he goes back and re-records one sentence, he has a hard time or a difficult time getting them to match, to sound like they're coming from the same recording. And this is the solution for that. Make sure, because when you approach the microphone the next day, even 10 minutes later, you may be in a different mindset. You may have a different read of that particular line. But even if the audio is a little bit louder, it makes a big difference. You'll hear it differently. So matching that audio is really going to help the consistency. So that's why I wanted to point this out in the very beginning. How does that sound to you?
That sounds great. And one of the suggestions, one thing I would say is that's a seems like a very common problem because I've researched that problem myself quite a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Very familiar with the clickiness issue. That's definitely one thing. With respect to the pickups and consistency, gain staging properly is definitely going to help, but the mic placement, the distance to the mic,
Yes.
maintaining that, because that proximity effect, especially on the large diaphragm condensers like the Rode, is really pronounced. So even if you're just 2 inches closer, if you have a tendency like me, for instance, to move about the booth, that proximity effect is going to not noticeably impact the audio. So even if your gain is technically the same,
Mm-hmm.
then you'll still feel that coming through. So it's very important. They often say that this trick here with the hang loose sign, I'm trying to get the camera to see it.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
The,
Yeah, that's
just
it.
to make sure.
Sorry, I know we've got a little bit of a delay here. You're absolutely right. Just to make sure we've got
It's all good.
that consistent length. I know we've got that consistent length, and you can do this, as one. I'll also throw this in the equation. And by the way, if you're just joining this live stream, thank you for joining us. I'm Lenny B, an audio engineer. I talk about all things audio, voice recording related, and how to increase the quality of your voice recordings. Theo is a client of mine, a friend of mine, and he's a voiceover artist and doing pretty good in his own right as a voice recording artist. And we're here to teach today and to share experiences and diagnose a raw recording. So I'm glad you're here, and by all means, I invite you to ask questions, and I'll keep checking the chat and bring some of these questions, and we'll answer questions as we go. So we're going to diagnose this whole audio and talk about the ways that we can improve the raw recording, and then we'll talk about processing it and how we can get it to sound better with these changes that we may be suggesting, and also how much can we improve it with just processing without fixing the raw audio is a thing too. I will also say I had a submission yesterday. I spoke to somebody, and he had a C414, and he was in a poorly treated room. Well, what happened was he got really close to the mic, and that makes sense. He was getting close to the mic because the closer you are to the microphone, the mic, you could lower your gain, and the mic picks up you better than the reflections bouncing in the room, right? The reflection is of your voice bouncing around the room. So you can improve the voice to noise or voice to room reflection ratio if you get closer to the mic, but it changes the sound of your voice. It wasn't sounding right. And the reason why I'm even interjecting this is, for the microphone to sound natural and pick up your voice, it should be about, you should be able to be a foot, maybe even a foot and a half to 6-10 inches. You should be able to work in that zone, that bubble, that pickup pattern on your microphone. But that's another reason why the room treatment is so important, because you can only do that if you are removing the reflections in your room with proper treatment. And I know you and I have talked about this extensively, but so yes, the proximity effect not only changes the tone of your voice, raises the bass among other things, and could introduce plosives and stuff, but it's just another reason why the room is so important.
Absolutely. And Lenny, would you mind showing me the slide just one more time? Because I think I saw something in there that might be worth mentioning as well.
Which one?
The one where he outlined his...
Oh, yeah. His challenges.
Issues.
Yep.
Yeah, so this third point on having problems with consistency.
Mm-hmm.
This is something that I've definitely experienced as well. And I think that one thing that's kind of a ghost in all of this, that's not often talked about when we talk about actual sound processing and treatment, is the breathing aspect. And I'm sorry, what is our person's name today?
Craig Peters.
Craig. Yeah, so Craig, I don't know if you struggle with this at all, but I sure know that I have and still do, in fact. And that's the breathing consistency. Sometimes during narration, you tend to get on a roll and you want to get the sentence out as much as you can, but you run out of steam 75% of the way through, and you have to take that big gulping breath. when you do that, you really have to modulate your voice, so you end up having to kind of tone it down, because when you have full lungs and your diaphragm's expanded, then you end up projecting a lot more. So that might be something to work on, just as an aside, like doing more consistent breathing but a little bit shallower, so that you're maintaining a more even tone rather than fluctuating between peak power, with especially with a voice like yours, because I imagine you project, right? Especially
Sure.
people telling you that you have a voice for radio, probably projecting a lot, have that bass, that power in it. We got to try to take, it's not that you have to take power out of it, but you have to maintain a consistent power level. That might be part of the problem. And especially, like Lenny said, if the treatment isn't good, behind the blankets, behind the backdrop, if you're having those reflections come back through, then every time you fluctuate that power, then those frequencies will vary greatly, and that doesn't help you at all either.
Absolutely, 100%. And I feel like, you don't really have to like practice the breathing stuff. I mean, you can, but I mean, you tell me how you did it, because it sounds like that was a struggle for you and something you were cognizant of. You were thinking of it. I feel like as soon as you're aware that that's a thing, like, oh, I have to kind of regulate how much power I'm putting at the beginning of the sentences or my breathing. As soon as you just kind of understand, how I know that's going to affect the sound, I think, as soon as you're aware of it, you could start implementing it. But, and the reason why I'm saying this is because sometimes we can get in our heads too much, and then you forget about just being real and reading the script, and getting into the story is kind of a lot of it too.
So true.
Right?
So true. Yeah, I completely agree. No, it's more like, it's exactly the awareness aspect. You just
Sure.
have to be aware. If you find yourself gasping for breath, then you know something's off. And so
Sure.
what's helped me is just breathing more in the stomach,
Okay.
rather than doing these chest breaths.
Right.
Breathing more by expanding the lower section of the diaphragm. That keeps everything a lot more even.
I keep on laughing because I'm getting visuals of my radio career, where we would be on the air. If I've done morning shows here in San Diego, and I've been in Los Angeles working in radio, and there is always a time where it's like, you're playing a song or you're getting through some commercials, and we're on the air, and we have this segment that we've prepared, and then I forget like notes, or I have to go let somebody in. And I'm like, in the morning, if we're on a morning show, there's nobody else in the office. You're usually there, with very few people in the office. So
Right.
I can't tell you how many times I'm like, oh my God, I look at the clock, like I've got 2 minutes and 7 seconds. I got to run all the way down to my office and grab maybe a USB drive with an audio clip of some interview that we've been teasing. So I book it down there, just run, grab it, and to get in time. And I bust the door open in the studio, and you see like 3, 2, put the the USB thing, but I am out of breath.
Oh yeah,
and it's like
gasping. Mm-hmm.
Hey, it's Lenny. It's just a nightmare, and just to be in that situation, and then you kind of like toss it to your co-host, and you say, "Just take it. Let me just breathe." I just did a marathon down the hallway. But yeah,
I can imagine.
that's really you have to be in the right zone and think about all that stuff. So let's go back to the booth. I'm going to throw that on the screen here real quick. Yes, the studio, Snap Studio, is what he's got, the one on the right side. He's got the larger one. And I'll tell you what, this is one of the things that happens. You're exactly right. The low frequencies, because of the properties and physics of sound absorbing material, they have to be thick. So those sound blankets do an okay job preventing outside noise from coming in. It reduces by a certain amount the noise that's outside the walls in that room, people in the other room in the house, or even fan noise from a computer that may be outside the tent in that room. Okay, it minimizes it, does not isolate you. A chamber needs to be airtight to be truly isolated, and there has to be a certain amount of mass. So true isolation is very, very difficult, and then ventilation comes into play, of not being 80 degrees when you're trying to record something. Also, the thicker the material that you are using to absorb sound and to absorb echoes, the lower the frequencies they absorb. So thinner material doesn't do a good job absorbing low frequencies. And we can hear his voice. He's got some bass in his voice. So what could be happening, and what I think is happening, is lower frequencies are still going through those sound blankets, hitting the wall, coming back through the sound blankets again and back into his microphone at a slight delay. That could be causing a little bit of a resonance. In general, I don't think he has much of a problem, and I feel like, yes, he can fix this, and I believe I've done it with EQ, and I'm going to play you what I've done with the EQ. But I will tell you this. This is the problem I see a lot of time, and if you have a booth, a PVC blanket booth in your room and you're using this as treatment, hey, it could be giving you good sound. I have a lot of clients that use those. They have processing. It sounds good and they're fine. So it's possible that you can have the configuration. Depends on you, depends on the mic that you're using and a bunch of other variables. How noisy is the room, blah, blah. I mean, it keeps going. But I will tell you this, and you nailed it right away. It also matters where the tent is in the room. And a lot of people tend to put it right in the corner, which is the worst place. And then they put the mic right in the corner. That's the worst place because you want, everybody goes, well, where's the best place? And it's not a factor of the best place. It's a factor of, this is the way, and write this down if you have one of these tents and you're using it. You want your microphone to be furthest away from any walls in the room. So that really means the best place, and I know there's limitations because people have stuff in their room. The best place would be that tent to be more towards the center of the room. The bigger the room, the better. Yeah, really right in the middle, which is nearly impossible because you've probably got a bed or a desk or something in that spare room that you're using, whatever, right? But the best place is to have the microphone that's in the tent as the furthest away as possible from any of the walls outside that booth tent. And that is because you're still going to get low frequency reflections going through whatever type of blankets. You can double. I've seen people quadruple the blankets and have foam, and it could still happen. If you're close to a wall, these microphones are really, really sensitive in all frequency spaces. So, yes, those tents will minimize the higher frequencies pretty easily, but the lower ones, and that's where that boxy sound comes from, right? That's where the boxy, annoying sound that so many people have problems in their recordings. That's where it comes from. Any thoughts to add to that? Are we on the same page? You feel, or what?
Oh, definitely. I think that's a great explanation. I wonder what the actual room itself is like, but yeah. Barring that, it really. To echo what you said, it doesn't sound so bad. I mean, yes, he has certain challenges, but that's just the nature of the beast, I think. We all have challenges in our space and with our own unique voice, but the quality of the sound for where he is really good. So
I think so too. And as soon as I heard it, I thought to myself, yeah, this is going to process very well. A couple... This is great. I'm just going to see if I get these on the screen. Let's see here. Yes. So this is, oh man, you guys have to bear with me. I'm learning as I go here, but thank you. The complaining gamer. I love the name. Why is it so big? It's like, I got to keep resizing it. There you go. Good. Consistency is something which I think is most relevant in longer reads. Personally, breath control is a killer for me. I'm with you, man. Thank you for leaving the comment. Dave G joined us. He says, I need to hear some air checks from Lenny. That's such a great, yes, you should. I am not a voiceover artist. I don't work as a voiceover artist, but I have aired, I would go as far as saying thousands and voiced thousands of commercials on radio throughout my radio career. But I suggest, Dave, go to my latest YouTube videos, the ones where we're not doing lives here because this quality is not, because we've got so many things and moving parts. But Dave, please go to my latest YouTube video and listen to the quality that I'm able to get in my room. And that's where I kind of do my best to try to give you an example of the quality that I'm able to get. And I think maybe that's what you're referring to. You want to hear, hey, what's the sound that Lenny can get? Let's see. The Collaborative Cafe. Hello from East Lansing, Michigan. Yeah, love your work, Lenny. Thank you so much. Guys, this is gold. This is Steve VO. What's up? Look at that picture. I love that. What do they call? What's that? That's the, he's He's got that little pout going on. He looks like a musician. I think he's a singer as well. Steve, thanks so much for coming in. I like your photo. Peter Marshall's here. This is great. And Terry Weiss is back again. Very, very cool. Look at what I'm going to do here, and I'm hoping this is going to work to get something else on screen. Pop. There we go. Okay, can you see my raw file diagnosis chart? Yeah,
Yes.
you may have that echo. Yes, I know. So we'll go back. So I'm going to say his recording level needs improvement, and it's because it was like 2.8 off from peaking at -6. And this is a binary system here. You're either exactly on target, you're peaking at -6 in your file, or you're not. So I'm going to move that check mark. His recording space, can it be improved? But I'm going to give it an 8 on my diagnosis chart because, yes, he could probably remove some of the low frequencies, and we're going to dive deeper into what I've done, and I want you to hear the difference between the processed with EQ to fix those resonances. He has that Snap Studio 5x5 booth, but I would say, Green is like, yep, you could do voiceover, you're going to get hired with this Green situation with the processing especially. Is there room for improvement? I'll probably never give anybody a 10 because we can always get better, right? Yes, but it's in the professional. 4 to 7 in the yellow, I'm saying would probably, we should fix it. The processing sounds good, but the processing can sound much better if you were to do whatever it is in your recording space that I would suggest. And then red means like, I'm not even going to process this because we got to fix your recording space first. So for Craig, and I'm going to do this real quick. Let's go back to, let's see. Let's go back. I'm going to play the unprocessed again for everybody because a lot of people are just joining here in the live. This is from Craig Peters. He's really a nice guy for letting me use his audio. We spoke last night, and he's from Lansing, Michigan, a voiceover. And so let's listen to his raw audio, and we could hear. I'll give you a peek. Let me just give you a peek into my EQ. His issue is 500 hertz, and I believe that is the sound. The 500 hertz is the resonance that is being caused by whatever proximity he is to the wall outside his little tent booth, and that's what we're able to fix. I've lowered 500 hertz 6.3 dB. Usually 6 dB is my threshold. I'm like, if I get a EQ more than 6 dB, we need to fix the room. But I think he just kind of makes it. I'm not going to play that EQ'd sound just yet. I want you to first hear the raw audio. Let's take a listen. Craig Peters.
The audio interface that I'm using is the Focusrite Scarlett Solo. I use Adobe Audition as my DAW.
I'm going to play it again now, processed, just so you can hear. This is EQ and all the other stuff, but I want you to hear the difference. I'm going to play the unprocessed, and then I'm going to engage the processing so you can hear the difference. If you have an idea of that low mid-range 500 hertz, listen for how I've removed it and what a difference it makes. I'm going to start unprocessed, and then I'll engage it in the middle of a sentence.
The audio interface that I'm using is the Focusrite Scarlett Solo. I use Adobe Audition as my DAW. I like creating voice recordings because who doesn't like the idea of their voice probably being heard around the world?
On.
So, I've always been told since I was a young kid that I should be in radio or something like that with my voice. Never took it too seriously, but anyway, biggest challenge I have with my...
Let's go back to the side-by-side so we don't have the echo. Were you able to hear that 500 frequency? It really brought things forward, and that's just what EQ does. When you've got a resonance, it's blurring the image of the audio.
Oh, you just answered the question. You preempted the question I was going to ask, which is, in the processed example, the voice is so much closer. That presence is accentuated. So, maybe it's the proximity. Maybe I'm not describing this correctly, but it definitely felt like the voice was closer and brighter. And so I was going to say, if we're cutting that, by the way, 500, I would have guessed it was lower. I was surprised that it was so high. But if you're cutting that, I was going to say, how come it's becoming brighter as a result of removing that frequency. And you just answered that.
Yeah, there's two things.
Perfect.
So really what's happening is because there's a peak, because he has a resonance of 500, right? That resonance, and what you're hearing is exactly right. You would have thought it would be lower, but what happens is that 500 is interacting with the lower frequencies, and it's nulling out some of the lower frequencies. So by balancing the 500, it actually allows the frequencies around it to be more perceptible. But there's also,
Okay.
does that make sense? Because now that 500 is not interacting, and they're all waves. So what happens is, let me think about how to. I'm trying to think of an analogy. It's phasing. It's and it goes in and out of phase. It's loud and it's like I'm trying to think of an example. And the only thing I could think of is a cassette tape, and it's because the majority of people watching this right now are probably my age or a little older or a little younger. So you ever look at a cassette tape and, one side is going here and the other side is kind of, and it catches up sometimes. You know what I'm talking about, the two, and eventually
Yes,
they're
I do.
going the same, and then it's out of phase again, and it's, and eventually they'll get back into phase and they're going the same way. It's like that, but for the sound waves. So when they're out of phase, it's canceling those frequencies around below 500, above 500. So when I correct that, it brings everything more forward. But the other side of this is that I'm only removing frequencies in the EQ, and we'll look at it again. But then I'm pushing everything up. So it's if this is the frequency space and there's a little bit of a dip here, but I'm raising the whole thing up. So what happens is there are some high frequencies that are being pushed up, and
Oh, that's right.
the
Okay.
net
That makes sense.
yes, the net result, even though I've dipped the 500 almost or a little bit more than 6 dB, I'm probably pushing the whole thing up 3 or 3.5 dB. So it's not much of a change. Does that make sense? I'll show
Yes,
you.
it's not as much of a change overall, but you are adding power to the rest of the spectrum. So that does bring it up a little bit. And now, since that interference is gone, that
Mhm.
barrier is gone, now there's more of that kind of cohesion between the lower and the higher frequencies. It makes perfect sense to me. It's just I wouldn't have been able to articulate it that way until you just explained it.
Yeah, it's only because I think about it day and night, and I speak EQ, and I always say that my wife's like, sometimes I'll get off on a tangent and talk about frequencies with her, and she's just like, I'm not interested at all. I say, well, at least you're being honest with me. I understand. I apologize. I get carried away because it's just my
We've all
thing.
been there, Lenny.
Yeah, I know. All right. It's okay. It's all right. I'm going to show you. I'm going to play something for you, and then I'll jump back into because this is, I think, so I've disengaged the second EQ, the ship's Omni channel. And by the way, somebody said this to me the other day. They're like, hey, Lenny, thank you for using the same plugins over and over when you're explaining this stuff. It helps with consistency. Yes. And the truth is, I have tools that can do the job. I could use any EQ. I can use the Pro Q3. I could use the F6. I could use the Nova, the free EQs. I could use the EQ. It doesn't matter. When you learn how to use the tools, then the differences become minimal. It's not the EQ giving you the sound. It's knowing how to use it. And I thought that was a cool way that someone appreciated the fact that we were doing it this way. Here's what I want to do. So we're looking at the F6. I am going to solo. Actually, let's do this. It's 507, and I'm going to shut that off, and I'm going to put on another one. I'm going to add another EQ, and then we're going to move on with some of the other CDE F6 RTA mono. Okay, so I've shut off the EQ that was doing the work before, but I'm going to put this on, let's go 507, and I want you to hear that frequency, because when I first heard his raw voice, I'm listening for those resonances, and I wanted to identify it for you.
Recordings is consistency, really. I have trouble with pickups.
Now, I'm over accentuating that, but I'm doing this on purpose. So now what I want to do is I'm drawing your attention to this frequency.
a new voice actor, so
It actually corresponds with a note. Like if I had a piano here, there's a note that corresponds, but it's a tone, and you're hearing a tone.
it takes me a while to get through a recording when I do pickups.
It's very mid-range. So now I'm going to let's listen to his voice and see if you can hear that same frequency. Now, there's no EQ.
They're never, not, I won't say never, but many times they aren't consistent with the previous take. So trying to get those things to match up is really tough for me. I don't know if this is something that you could help with this in this evaluation, or with any of the new settings you get me, if that would help that out.
It is really crazy how removing a frequency makes the other frequencies on the left and the right side clearer and more present and more forward.
Absolutely. Yes, and I could especially hear that after you raised it and dropped it back down to the normal level. I could then hear it in the normal range more, whereas before that was imperceptible. But once it's been isolated, you can really pick it up.
And he has two others. He's got, and this one is the most offending, 14.33 or 1433. And let's just listen to it real quick, and I know we got to move on. Man, I can do this all day. What did I say, 1433? Let's see. 14. Oh, you're not looking at it yet. 1433. Stand by. I'll change this for you. There you go. 1433. So I shut this 3 off, but I want you to hear this one too. The same thing.
At all or not? Not really sure. I like recording e-learnings, commercials, any narration. I like.
That one's a little harder. I'll tell you this, that the higher the frequency, sometimes the more difficult it is to pick it out. And I'll tell you that it doesn't happen very often. It happens less often. Usually it's the 500 hertz and down that has the issues. But anyway, balancing with EQ usually reveals to me a potential room problem. Let's put it this way, a potential room issue. If it's not too bad, you could fix it with EQ and you're okay. But if you move the microphone in anywhere else in the room, those frequencies that I fixed are going to change. Because
That's
it really, because it depends on how far away you are from the wall. This is physics. This is really math. It depends on the dimensions of the room, the type of pickup pattern of the mic. So if you move to the left, if you set up your tent and you had to take it down and you set it up again, and if you're not in the exact same space, that frequency resonance is going to be a little bit, it'll move. So you'll have to re-EQ, or that's just one of the points I wanted to make.
Yeah, no, that's important, and it speaks to I think it kind of illustrates an important aspect of this, which is that you're talking about fixing the situation, right? And so it's always better, and this is one of the things that I learned from your courses, which is that if you are using processing to compensate for problems, you can never achieve as much as if you are using processing to just balance and sweeten and do the minimal effective touches. And so really, we don't want to use EQ and compression and all that stuff to fix situational problems, right? We want to use them to tailor to your voice and get the most out of your voice. But if you have a situation problem, that should be addressed as much as possible.
Beautifully put. Here's a great analogy. I love using this because EQ, it's a filter, and anybody, my nieces and nephews' ages, like in their 20s and younger, or even in their 30s, will appreciate this. It's like when you take a picture, and if I say, "Hey Theo, I got it. Oh, this is I love your fit today, man. You're looking great. Your hair looks awesome. And let me snap some pictures. And I like this lighting. And we're here at this resort. So I'll tell you what, buddy, stand right here. And if I take a picture, but you are standing in a great place, the lighting is good, but there's a trash can behind you. No I guess these days, and it's like kind of what RX is, right? Isotope. We could remove the trash can, but I would prefer to let's see, if I put you in a little bit, if I moved the trash can and had to do less post-production, less fixing in Photoshop these days, I know these days, yes, the AI plugins are really, really good, but I would prefer to use less filters, capture a fantastic image, and then just work and use the filters to accentuate the colors, make the picture sharper. It's exactly what it is. It's what do they call that? When you design the position of people posing in a picture, I'd rather have a good shot raw, and then I can fine tune it and use the plugins and the filters to optimize instead of, I got to take this out. Does that look realistic? I don't know. It kind of does, but then the shadow's messed up and I got to fix the shadow. And it's that same stuff.
Yeah,
Carson
absolutely.
McCamey said, "Preach, Lenny." He says, "My wife's eyes roll further into her at each minute of my tangents." We're with you. Robert said, "Good morning, Lenny, from Lighthouse Point." Is it Lighthouse Point, Florida? Yes, thanks. Loves your custom preset. He is a client of mine and a great guy. Good analogy, Dave says, and it's so wonderful to hear. Throw me some questions too, because we're going to go through some more of the stuff. If you guys are having any questions about some of the stuff we're talking about, again, just to kind of quickly recap here, we are doing a diagnosis of raw audio, and we're going to go further down the list. Before that, I have to do the shameless plug, and I'm telling you this because these are going to help. If you have an issue with acoustic treatment, I've written this acoustic treatment course, and we're talking about all the stuff that's in the course, and I try to make it so we're like, you go through this course, and you will get real life information that you can apply, techniques and stuff immediately to help. So we've talked about recording levels, which is number 2, acoustic treatment, which is number 1. These courses are available on my website. You can enroll and take them today, and it supports me and the channel and to continue to do this stuff. And then obviously, if a lot of my custom preset clients are here, and you can always send me your voice if you want to hear what my processing sounds like on your voice, where I do all the EQ work. Maybe you're like, this stuff it's interesting, but I just don't have the ear for it. A lot of people hit me up, and I'm able to help. You could send me a copy or a sample of your raw recording, and I will send back to you for free an example so you can hear what my processing sounds like on your voice. It's absolutely free. There's no obligation. It's one of the things I do to grow the community and really give you an idea of what your voice could sound like. Some people aren't ready to get a preset right now, but they can hear what it sounds like. A lot of times I will write back and say, this sounds good. The processing sounds good, but we need to upgrade your mic. I think you're going to find don't buy the preset now. Don't invest the money in the preset. Invest the money in upgrading to a mic. Here are some suggestions. So I just help. I try to help to raise your game. So lennyb.com is where you can get that information. How are you digging your preset, by the way?
It's fantastic. And to say something about the courses, that EQ course, that one, what I really liked about it is the real life examples where you provide the audio from real clients who have made submissions in the past.
I know. I'm bummed that I probably have an echo when I put another screen on. I wonder if it's just the ones where the little bubble of you is on the screen. But go ahead. Thank you for saying that.
I think so. Yep. Yeah, that EQ fundamentals for voice comes with, I think it was 6 or 8 unique processing examples that you can then try to EQ yourself by using the tools and trying to isolate and train your ear to listen to those frequencies, which can really help you diagnose your own problems in the future. And it's kind of like the teaching to fish, because now if my studio changes, which something's always changing, right? Or if you have to move it to another place, or if you're adding material, or I don't know, if you put artwork in the wall and some resulting frequencies start to bounce around and mess things up, you can better diagnose that by having the ear to hear those offending frequencies better. So all that practice was essential for me. I still feel like I'm not quite getting it, especially in your 1400 hertz example earlier. That wasn't as pronounced to me. It was, I can hear the low end, but not so much the high end. But it's a learning curve. It takes time.
It does, and I struggle sometimes. And this happens a lot too. Sometimes I'll EQ, and I've been doing it, and sometimes I'll be like, okay, that's good. Sometimes I'll be like, I did all these EQ things, I found these things, and it's just not, something else is wrong. I'll erase the board and then just start over again. So, or sometimes I'll leave, I'll go ride my bike, or I'll go grab something to eat, and I need an ear wash, which means like, let me hear something else out of this room for a little while. So it's like it's a, you have to focus, and it's not totally easy to do. And I think for some reason I'm good at it, so I think I have that talent. Not everybody does. I know a lot of guys my age and older. I get a lot of clients that are like years of rock concerts and headphones and being on the air, listening to music so loud. I've got tinnitus or tinnitus or whatever you call it. I do too. My ears ring a little bit.
I have it.
Yeah, and it's like I can't. They can't do it anymore, and they don't have it, and they're like, I need to lean on your ears and your your skill for this. And they get that from me, which is totally cool. This is so cool. Check this out here. What do you think about using? Jordan, tell me, Jordan. He's asking me about CL1B during tracking. Explain to me what that is. I believe that's a compressor plugin, but can you give me a little bit more detail? Terry says, would you recommend using, great, thank you so much for asking questions because I want to make this a community thing. Would you recommend using EQ to help reduce sibilance as opposed to a DeEsser? I'm sure that's what he meant to write as a DeEsser. Great question. I would probably use a DeEsser. It depends on what I'm hearing in the high end. I would probably lean first towards a DeEsser, and then I would ask myself the question, am I hearing sibilance because there's a resonance in a high frequency area, or is it because this person is just sibilant, or is it because the low frequency information is being nulled and it's raising all this high end? So I actually would probably try to fix the low frequencies first, then re-ask myself that question. Is the DeEsser doing its job? Is it still sibilance after the DeEsser? Does that mean it has a problem in the high frequency space? Or a lot of times, if you've got a room problem, this is another thing this is why we always say room treatment is the biggest thing. You got to fix the room. The room is the biggest problem. Get acoustic treatment. Is the resonance in the room it could cause your audio to have no bass. It could cause your audio to have too much bass. It could cause your audio to have too much sibilance. How does a bass problem make it too much sibilance? But it does, because it changes the ratio and it upsets the balance of the frequencies. So I guess really to answer your question, I would use a DeEsser, and if that's not fixing the problem, there could be a little bit of help that I might do in the high end in the frequency space, and I'd sweep and try to find where that is. Maybe a wider band in the EQ to lower the higher frequencies with the DeEsser. Maybe that helps. But here's the answer. DeEsser first, then maybe an EQ if the DeEsser wasn't fixing it. And then I'd ask myself, is there a room problem? And because generally, if you fix that, would having great acoustic treatment and no reflections in the room totally change all this? And the answer is probably yes. Robert is thank you, Terry, and thank you for that. Robert says, what is the sphere in which my mic position can vary? I'm talking about the 5 to 10 inches in front of me when I need to swing it a bit. Great question, and you could jump in here anytime if there's something you want to add, Theo. But I would say every mic is different. Every room that you're going to be in may play into it. I would say throw on some headphones and check it out. I mean, move around, find your sphere, see what it sounds like here. What's the noise to room to signal ratio here versus here? It's all different. When you see a singer, Whitney Houston is such a great example of this in some of her old videos, as she is doing this when she's singing, and I will always love you. She really moves off the mic. This is compression. This is working the mic technique. That's what it is when she's singing, and she's doing this constantly based on her projection and how loud she is and everything. But find yours.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Lenny. On that point, doesn't the mic type have a huge effect on that as well? Because the dynamic mics are going to respond way differently. And then if you're using a super diaphragm condenser, right? You're gonna like if you're using a MKH 416, it's going to be way different because it's so much more focused. So it might not care at all if you move 10 inches back because it's actually built for targeting sound at a distance, right? But if you move 3 inches off to the side, it's going to have a lot bigger problem with that than a large diaphragm condenser because the supercardioids are much more tight, right?
Absolutely. So supercardioid, shotgun versus a cardioid pattern, a dynamic. All the mics are different. They're going to have that different sphere area. But here's the thing. You could say, well, why would I get that mic then if the sphere is smaller? You can use that sphere, or actually you could use outside of that sphere to help you null some reflections. So if my reflections are coming from the right, left, and in front of me, I may want a microphone that is a hypercardioid because it's going to reject all of the reflections. So producers use this on purpose if they want to have a particular mic on a drum or a guitar. Small condenser, microphone is going to be different, and they use that because sometimes they want the sound of the room, sometimes they don't. That's why microphone choice is such a big deal. So you're absolutely right. All the mics are different. Jordan said, he just to go back to that question, that the CL1 is the hardware, and yeah, that's an expensive. The tube techs are very, very expensive. I know what that is now. Would I suggest it for vocal tracking if you're doing voiceover? Yeah, maybe, but not too much. I would. I would use it really lightly just to take off maybe some of the high end, and I would also record it raw and listen to the both of them to see. It really all depends on what you're doing. But yeah, I mean, if you've got one of those things, it's a tube, compressor. It's just gonna sound awesome. So I would use it lightly. I would use it with a pretty quick attack, slower release, and maybe 1 to 2 dB of reduction just to take off the edge of those transients. I would maybe use it to give a vibe, use it slower, after I EQ'd it, and after I did all the other processing. I like to use a warming, sweetening compressor after I do all the fixing and balancing with the EQ. So when you say use it for tracking, you're saying using it first, which is where I would kind of shy away from that a little bit. Depends on what, if your source is great, then you're good. If you've got a well-treated room, you should be okay. Let's see, hardware. I'm just looking through the stuff here. Yep, I love that people are having their own conversations. And if I'm missing some of the questions, I will, after this live is finished and it's posted on YouTube, I'll do my best to go back and help. Let's look at this real quick. Let's see here. Okay, so his noise score. I hear very little noise. I'm going to give him an 8. He is coming from an Audio-Technica. It's kind of it looks like a little hypercardioid, inexpensive, like a $150 mic, and he said it had a lot of noise before. I'm only telling you this because he mentioned it in his submission when he sent me the audio. So I know for a fact, especially the newer 5th generation Rode NT1s sound great with a very low noise floor. That's good for the money. I think they're a fantastic choice, and I don't think you would need a better mic than that if you have a well-treated room to be very successful. Let me put it this way. Your mic, if you don't have a more expensive or higher quality mic than the Rode NT1, I don't think it's preventing you from being successful as a voiceover artist. I hope that makes sense. I use double negatives there. What do you think, Theo?
I think no, that's correct. That's my situation.
Yes.
And in fact, we talked about this last time, is I ended up upgrading from the Rode NT1 and ended up feeling like there was no need for me to do that.
Because
it was just a step out of turn.
Because you got room treatment.
Yeah. That's right. I got room treatment and I got custom presets that fixed the issues that I was having and brought out my voice, and it was the perfect solution already. I mean, having the better microphone is, I guess that's brownie points for somebody out there who's looking for a particular sound maybe, but it's not essential. And the Rode is so this is just my amateur layman opinion, but I think that the NT1 punches way above its weight in terms of the quality, and like you mentioned, the noise floor. It's something like 4 decibels, right? Which is crazy. It's one of the lowest condenser mics in the business at $250. You cannot get any better of a deal than that, of a balance than that, I think, between cost and function. So
And the fifth generation's got an option for the USB in case you've got a little side thing that you're doing. Yeah, it's fantastic. The technology is getting better. Excuse me, and the prices are getting more affordable. But yeah, absolutely. To get it, I've always said this: when you upgrade from a $100 to $200 microphone and you get into that mid range, which the Rode NT1 seems to be that, but even for a lower price, it's $250. But the $300, $400, $500 range of microphones, you're usually getting a better noise floor and better resolution. You're getting a flatter frequency response that it's picking up, and I think that the Rode does that for a great price. I mean, it's a great choice. I've got one myself, and I love to. I'm happy when I get people that have that because I know that they've made a wise choice. There's nothing worse than having to tell somebody, I don't know if you got the right mic for your voice or the room, or you may need to think about doing something different with the mic. That's a bummer. So I
have a question.
Yeah.
How often, in your experience, is the equipment the impediment to somebody having a good result as opposed to the rest of the equation?
Rarely, because usually it's the room. Usually it's the room or recording level, or they've got something that's not set right, the sound card in their computer. Generally, that's what's preventing them, or they're not using sometimes. I mean, I don't want anybody to ever be embarrassed because, and I can tell you this, I've had some people that'll send me a thing and they're speaking into the wrong side of the microphone. It's understandable. No, they should bring when you buy a mic, and if you're just starting, they should say, your voice here, speak into this side of the mic. If you don't know, you don't know, and it's okay. And sometimes mics don't even have the logo on the one side. I've had people that were speaking in the other side of the microphone, and they're like, "Oh my God, thank you so much." I mean, there's no video that tells people, "Hey, if you're using this mic, make sure you're speaking." Maybe I should do those videos for all the mics.
I think so.
Right, because you just don't know, and especially if you're starting. But I would say, if it is a microphone issue, it's probably because it's a dynamic mic and they're not using a cloud lifter, or they're not using a mic activator or a preamp that's giving this enough gain so they have noise, or it's probably because they're using like a $100 microphone, and it's like, this mic or a USB mic, you've got the audio interface and the microphone in this one piece of technology that is a lower price, and it's just the quality is not there. It's not giving you a clear representation. It's not taking a great picture of your voice. It's like a really, cheap camera. I guess that would be the equivalent, or a cheap lens is kind of what it would be. When if anybody is a photographer and you know the difference between, just pro glass, it's a huge difference. It's the clarity, it's the resolution, it's the sharpness, and those things allow you to transmit emotion through the picture. You could see somebody's feeling if it's a clear, amazing picture, right? Same thing. You can hear somebody's emotional feeling when you have a really good recording, and that's what helps you when you're reading an audiobook or you're doing a video game and you're doing narration and you want to convey something. That's what engages an audience, is the emotional connection. So, but to answer your question, it's rare that it's the equipment. It's more so, I think, the room. Room is the biggest thing. That's why I suggest people take that course. If you want an improvement for your investment, the ratio is usually sound treatment, and it's not exciting to shop for. That's the problem. I'm going to do this real quick. So his mic score, I'm going to give it an 8. I think his equipment is great. Yes, he can get a better mic. Yes, he could probably get a more expensive microphone. It'll sound incrementally better. I'll never give a 10 because you could always get something better, but I would say he's pretty darn close. Mike, guys are probably screaming at the screen. So his equipment score, I would say, was 8. Mic technique, God, I think he's okay. I don't think that's a problem either. So fixing his recording level was one thing we can do. I adjusted for it on my end, and we're going to play the processed sound again. But I would say in this diagnosis, he's doing pretty good. He could probably improve his recording space to make the whole thing sound better, and we'll go through it. But I would say his raw recording is done well which allows the processing to work well.
I agree. I think that just by his own diagnosis, the self-diagnosis, that's not always the most reliable, particularly when it comes to like actual sound quality, the EQing and compression and all that stuff. That's hard to get a handle on in the beginning. But in his case, what he's talking about is, I feel like it's more of a personal representation of, hey, this is what I tend to struggle with. This is what I notice about myself. So I think, if anything, that mic technique is something that he can probably address with some fairly simple exercises. Like we talked about, setting the gain right consistently every time. Make sure you get that right. Getting the proximity correct. And then I don't think that there's anybody I would not suggest to work on breathing, because it's such a huge part. We breathe when we talk. We breathe all the time, come to think of it. So it's important to get that right, especially in the context of your longer form. I agree that we had a comment earlier that it matters a lot in long form, and it's true, but it matters a lot everywhere, because how you regulate voice, how you control your diaphragm, when you're doing a voiceover performance, you're doing it with more than just your voice. You are using your body. So, because you're using your eyes, you're using your brain power, your posture, you're moving your hands a lot of the time, or I do. I know he's standing in that booth, most likely he is. And I do my voiceover when standing too. So, you're shifting from foot to foot, you're using your balance. I think it's really important to pay attention to the breath. Like you said, not overly much, not to the point of getting self-conscious and driving yourself crazy, but noticing if you are running out of breath, if you are noticing you're having severe consistency issues, diaphragmic, I think that's what it's called, diaphragm-based breathing is a must. And there's a lot of videos on YouTube by voicing coaches that will help with that. It's really, I wouldn't say it's an easy fix, but it's low-hanging fruit. It's a thing that you can do yourself very easily, and it helps a bunch. I know it helped me, so I'd recommend it.
Yeah, that's interesting. Good. I don't really, to be honest, I don't know, much about that world, and I think it's a good point. So yeah, thank you for that. A couple things real quick. If anybody wants to reach out to you, I had in our last live, our first live, which was my first live, the first video we did, it was Wednesday, I think it was. It should be posted on the YouTube channel. You could watch it. But I asked you as well. You're okay with people? Here's why. Let me just give everybody a little bit of background on you. If you didn't join us for the first one, Theo, recently started doing this as a professional, and did his first audiobooks, and did his first audiobook, his own book that he read, and then quickly kind of grew into somebody that has not enough time because he has so much work, which is wonderful for you. Congratulations. And I always tell you this, and you're a very humble person. Yes, you're a humble guy, and anybody that is in the voice recording space, or they're a content creator, and is just, they want to do a presentation, they want to tell a story, whether it be for their business, if they want to do narration, if they want to do commercials, whatever they want to do. Anybody that's earlier along the path than you are can learn something from you. So I think it's wonderful that you're open to taking questions, even if somebody wants to email you and ask you something, pick your brain on stuff. So I will put your website, which is just theopolo.com, and
That's right.
I'll put your email address in the notes once we're finished. But that's really cool.
Sure thing. Yeah, it's my pleasure.
Yeah, and I want to tease the next thing we're going to do, which we just thought about. I have a project that I'm going to be working on, so I'm going to be gone for a couple weeks. So I probably am not going to be available. I know I won't be available until a little later in September. But our next thing is we're going to do something called Stalk the Voiceover website, which I love. Because you asked, we were talking a little bit about your website, which is just your first foray, your first effort into building a business website for voiceover. And I had some suggestions, and I'm like, wait, let's not do this yet. Let's have this conversation. What I want to do is I want to stalk your website, and I'm going to make suggestions. it's really marketing is what it is. Here's how I would change this, and what do you want to drive people to do? We're going to just go through your website, and I'm going to make suggestions on how you might think about changing your business, your marketing, and your setup. And we start with a bio, and your website is really the first line of defense when we're talking about marketing and getting your name out there and trying to attract new clients, more clients, bigger clients, better clients, ideal clients, the people that you want, the people with the projects that you want to do. And you can you can attract those people. So if you're interested, keep your eyes open. I'm going to send out a notice, and I'll hit the database and the newsletter and stuff. But that's what we're going to do next. If you're cool with letting us diagnose and pick apart your website.
I have my work cut out for me in the next couple of weeks while you're busy. I'm going to be trying to tune that up.
Yeah,
And
no,
to
don't
quote you,
don't change
you,
it.
You said no. Well, yeah, I'll be thinking about it at the very least. You said last time we talked, you said this is why I don't think we should talk in private ever again, because we had all these ideas flying, and that's a great idea. I think stalking people's websites and giving them the information to help them kind of dial it in. It's perfect.
Now it would be messed up if we did it without asking them. So I'm only going to do this to people that are going to say, "Hey, stalk my website and ask me." Because
good point. I should have mentioned that.
No, that's okay. I just so I'm thinking I may reach out to some people and some of my clients, or during that broadcast, I'm just kind of teasing what we may do for the next live, but. Maybe during that broadcast, we'll ask, "Hey, do you want us to take a look at yours?" Some people probably don't want to, but the whole effort here, and I'm speaking to everybody. Excuse me, in the everybody in the live right now, and anybody watching this. The reason why I'm doing this is to share, my knowledge with you to help you raise your game. I thought and think that, and still think that, bringing you on to have these conversations, the information we're talking about, the stuff that we actually are discussing and creating, could only help other people who are interested in learning on this subject. So this is my entire effort. I'm going to do the shameless plug again. I'm going to put my courses on, and I'm going to put them on the screen because here's why. I've been doing this for 4 years? No. I mean, I've been doing it full time for maybe a couple, I would say 4 or 5, maybe 6 years. I've had this rolling where I'm making videos talking about, I guess you could look in my YouTube channel, talking about EQ and helping people fix the quality or improve the quality of their voice. And I've noticed all the people that I deal with and clients that come to me and people that buy my courses, and the questions and comments that I get are on topics that have a theme. And I'm like, gosh, this is a great recording levels. No one is really sure what the best recording level is. So number 2 here is my recording levels course. That's why I wrote the course, is because everybody has these questions, and I need to put the information in the same place. And I not only tell you what the right recording level, in my opinion, as my own audio engineer, in my opinion, this is the recording level I suggest for recording voice, and why. Here's why. And it's a lot of it is because down the processing path, it matters. And I'm going to throw this as something I wanted to say earlier. Some of the information or some of the problems that Craig is experiencing could be because of mastering, the clicking and popping. It could be because of the recording level. He was asking maybe could it be the equipment? I doubt it. It's probably the recording level is peaking sometimes, and that's clipping. And then if you lower it, you're probably feeling like it's not going to be loud enough, and then that messes it up for when you finally you send out your audio. There is a process and a system and a procedure that will help you get consistent. So I'm going to suggest for Craig the workflow course. Gosh, I think the recording levels and the workflow and the mastering course are really, really good for him, and it's gonna open his eyes and make him feel more comfortable, and make him feel more confident about his sound. But tell me about your thoughts while I prepare. What I want to do as we wrap up here is play the raw. I'll play a nice chunk of it, and then I'll engage and disengage and engage the processing, so you can hear the difference in what my processing sounds like based on the raw recording. It's so important that the room sounds good and your raw recording sounds good, because the process sound is only as good as the raw recording, is. It's got to be great to start. I know I said a million different things. Theo, what are your thoughts on all that?
No, I totally agree. I think that it's a little bit unclear how what he means when he says like clicks and pops. Clipping is, I would imagine, pretty hard to do on the Scarlett, especially if he's using I'm not sure if the third generation has the clip safe feature or not.
It doesn't.
It does not.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
I
So
don't.
that might be an issue.
And I don't like it. I suggest. I mean, even the fourth generation has like the gain to set the level. I'd rather you know how to set it, and it's much lower than even they. Well, that's not true. It depends. Here's the problem. I don't know if you're going to get the same consistency. I'd rather you know why and what to shoot for and the reason behind the engineering of it. I think you'd probably be better off, especially down the production path. That's just my thoughts.
For sure. Yeah, I was just thinking that XLR, the reliability of XLR, I don't think comes into question here. I was specifically pointing to the safe feature, the clip safe that's on the fourth gen.
Gotcha.
Not sure if it's on the third gen, but it prevents you from going over 0. I'm not sure exactly how it works. I haven't explored it. Since I figured out how to set the gain properly. But I think another thing I would make a suggestion of that I know has made a big difference for me is hydration too. It sounds like such a simple thing, but mouth clicks and things are a lot of the time are a hydration issue. I'm not sure what kind of clicks he's talking about, but if it is that, then it could just be that he's not properly hydrated, or maybe has been going over long and getting dry mouth. That can be an issue that can really kind of mess with your sound at the worst possible times. So I'm just throwing things against the wall there. In case anything might help. But overall, I think I agree that the recording levels are going to be probably the most important thing, because especially if there's that, I'm going back to what he said, which is I struggle with the consistency. And if you're having a consistency issue, then you got to try to work on the things that we know we can control for, which is the gain, proximity, and voice modulation. So
the complaining gamer says magic green apples. Yeah, that tartness probably drives the saliva to come out more in your voice. And Robert is asking about beyond a custom preset. Let me ask real quick here. Beyond a custom preset, is there a signal chain consultation you offer? He uses Pro Tools, 4-track stuff. Yeah, you know what? That's one of the things, Robert. I'm thinking about. The next course that I write, I'm actually working on it right now, is compression, because I think I've been meaning to do that for a long time, and I think that is definitely next. But I think after that, I want to do a course on multitracking and the processing that you use, which is different for processing a single voice. The processing thing you might use on a voice, music, and maybe effects, or two voices and music underneath, and blending and mixing those things together. We call it bus processing, when you're doing one processing tool on several tracks of music and the ratios between them and how it affects, and using EQ. And I'm not talking about mastering. That's the step at the end. That's to raise the loudness. So this is a separate type of thing. And this is where like ducking comes into play. It's like, how do I get the voice to continue to be intelligible, but not have the music not only in the way, but I also want the music to be loud and to add the emotion. So it's like you can't have both, but you can if you do it the right way with frequency and balancing and stuff. So I think that's maybe what you're referring to, Robert. Well, you and I could talk about that too. I know he's been a great client of mine and keeps coming back to learn more and more and more. Just real quick, I want to play. We got to wrap this up here so people can get back to their weekends and everything else, but we'll just look at this really quickly again. So he did really good. This will wrap up the diagnosis. Craig's doing okay, and let's listen to everything together. Now I'm going to take away that example EQ that I was using, and I'm going to turn on and off the Studio Verse, which is the new version of Studio Rack. I guess it's still called Studio Rack. Studio Verse is inside it now. So Studio Rack is one of the things that I use. It's a Waves plugin that holds the other plugins that I use and their settings. So we've got the F6 here, and this is what the EQ curve looks like. We've got two pretty good resonances, and then I'm using the Schoeps omnichannel. You know, it's one of my favorites. I use it on just about everything, not just voice. The Schoeps omnichannel is just fantastic, and it's got a gate and a preamp and a compressor. I'm using EQ, two DeEssers, and I'm using another opto compressor at the end to get the sound that you're going to hear. So we're going to start listening, and I'll engage and disengage the custom preset, including the EQ changes that we discussed earlier. And let's take a listen, and we'll wrap it up. We'll start raw.
The audio interface that I'm using is the Focusrite Scarlett Solo. I use Adobe Audition as my DAW.
Still raw.
I like creating voice recordings because who doesn't like the idea of their voice probably being heard around the world? So
Off now again.
I've always been told since I was a young kid that I should be in radio or something like that.
I want to show you something, and I know this is crazy. It's really, it's 31, so we're about 33, 31. So that's the average loudness seems to get about 2, maybe 3 dB louder, the average. So the perception is the average loudness based on LUFS, which is a way how we hear, is a cut. So the perceived loudness is louder, but we are not peaking. If you look at the true peak, when I have the effects engaged, it's not peaking any louder. It's actually exactly the same. So it sounds louder because we're getting rid of the nulling of some of the frequencies, plus the compression. It sounds more forward. That's a processed sound. I don't think it sounds too processed. I try to keep it very natural, but it retains, I think, all the frequency balance and doesn't sound like pressed in your face, like way too processed. But you can hear it just like it brightens it up. It sounds more intelligible. It sounds more clear. It sounds like you're removing a piece of fabric from the speakers when you hear the processing. You can hear it
I
pretty
agree.
clearly?
Oh, yeah, I can hear it very clearly. And I think the cool thing about that on his voice is that, and this might help with that modulation, the consistency issues as well, is because it brightens up the voice so much. It brings out those other frequencies through that balance that his voice actually has, it feels like it has more power now. So he might not have to work so hard in order to get the same levels and the same kind of representation.
Yes.
So he could, because he's got such natural power in the voice, he could probably allow himself to relax quite a bit and just kind of pull back a little bit from projecting and still have that very commanding presence in the tone.
Absolutely, and that will help with his breath, right? If he's having to push all the time. And yeah, I often say that I feel like a custom processing setting that I put together offers you not only a better sound, but it also gives you leverage. So you don't have to project because it's so much more clear. If the situations are right and your room is treated properly, if all the conditions line up and it allows the processing to sound better, you don't have to push. You don't have to push so hard. You could actually, like I said, the microphones are so sensitive. Let it suck the voice and the sound and the emotion out of, you shouldn't have to try to push it. So, and that's what compression does when it's used properly, and then EQ does when you balance. It gives you leverage to emote, which allows you to tell a story with less effort, and I think the emotions can be larger than life that way. I really do feel that way. My voice right now does not have any processing on it. I don't think yours does either right now. So, you can hear the difference between something raw and a processed sound like this.
Yeah, and just to add to that, this is something that you talk about a lot too, but the confidence aspect is big, because how you hear yourself, the more confident that you are with your sound signature, like if you know that you're getting the best possible sound when you're recording, you can relax more. As you relax more, all other aspects improve. You can hang in there longer through longer recording sessions. You can allow yourself a little bit more room to explore and test your boundaries a little bit. And you ultimately, I think you get more work done and feel better about it. So that's a factor that does matter, and that I know that's what this setup has done for me, Lenny, is I've been able to stop thinking about the sound. And
Good. Yes, takes the pressure off.
paradoxically, that's right, and it helps so much. You stop thinking about it, all of a sudden things improve. So it's kind of a paradox, but that's not to say that the education wasn't important. It was important so that I could understand what's behind it and not worry about it so much now that we've reached this stage. So
That is
very
that's
grateful for that.
Yeah, that's my intent, Theo, when I do all these things for people. And, my processing, I'm not saying that what I do is the right way. It's my way. And, you can hear my voice on my videos, and you can hear some of the examples, and you can listen to examples on my website. I'm just sharing with hey, this is the way I'm doing it. If you like it, maybe I can help you. But, my effort is to help people follow their dreams and do what they want to do, because I've realized that this is kind of my gift. For some reason I can hear a 500 or 503 hertz. I can just hear that resonance, and so I'm really sharing the solutions for people. The training courses, I believe, are so valuable, and I've put a lot of my heart and effort and soul into them. LennyB.com is where you can get that. Also, just to explain to you what's going to happen. So Craig sent me this audio last night. I processed it, and I prepared the audio here for us to have the conversation. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to send him back a raw version. So I'll take all the processing off, make sure it's at the right recording level, because I adjusted his recording level. And then I'm going to match the processed sound recording level and send those two clips to him. So at the same peak volume, he's going to be able to hear one and the other and compare them. And then it's like, hey, this is what I've come up with. If you're interested in getting this preset on your machine, we could talk about how we can do that. And I can offer that to him. So, and that's free, by the way. So if you feel like you might have an issue in your room and you want me to just take a listen to your audio, I will send you an example for free of what my processing sounds like on your voice. And if you've got problems that are beyond what the processing can fix, I'll share them with you and maybe direct you to one of my training courses, or give you the solution or whatever. So again, LennyB.com, there's a red button at the top of my homepage, LennyB.com, and it's a form you fill out, and it gives you all the information on how to send me your raw audio. What do you got on store for the rest of the day? Actually, it's like nighttime there, right? You guys eat yet? What's happening over there?
We're wrapping up. It's bedtime pretty soon.
Okay.
But just gonna relax and enjoy the rest of the tail end of the summer weather. So
gotcha. Theo, again, thank you for doing this. Thanks for everyone in here. I intended for this I swear to God, I intended this to be a half hour today. There's no way. We're
pretty close.
Yeah, just give or take an hour. I wanted this to be quicker because I love talking about this stuff, and it's and there's so much to share and to talk about and to teach. So I hope you got a lot out of it. I'm going to do more lives like this. Send me some questions. You get me on my website, Theo. I'm going to put your contact information if people have pictures, or if people have questions, or they just want to reach out to you, or just say, hey, good job and cool dude, and thanks for sharing what you do.
Pictures are okay as long as it's kosher. But I appreciate it, Lenny. Thank you so much. It's great to talk to you every time. You
got it, buddy. All right. Thanks again for everyone in the chat. That was a lot of fun. I've figured out how to properly end these live sessions now. Here's what I like to do. You got it, Robert. Everybody's saying goodbye in the chat. Thank you. What I've learned, and I do this for Zoom too, and you can borrow this. You can have this as well. Before I say goodbye, I make sure I put my mouse over the off button, because what ends up happening, right? Everybody goes say, okay, bye. And then they're on for another 3 seconds while everybody's like trying to scamper around to find the close button. So my mouse is over the end, close the broadcast button. And now I could say proper bye. Thank you for your time, Theo.
Awesome. Thank you, Lenny. Have a great day.
We'll see you.